Hi, Carrie. Thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know today we're going to talk more about the advisory coach solution that Churchill is offering this year, really in response to client demand that they want more than coaching, coaching being coaching the leader to enhance their ability as a leader in all those different leadership ways, including mindsets, behaviors, and skills. And also being able to change hats based on what the leader is dealing with and needs you for, business advisory. So that's more advising on the business problems, the business situations, etc. So with that, let's start with the first question. In general, even outside of your particular expertise, what do you think are some of the common business challenges that advisor coaching is best sort of designed for? What are business leaders dealing with now where this would be a great fit?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the things that I see is that executives often run into really significant challenges with governance, broadly speaking. So, that could take the form of board relations, it could take the form of the authorities that are invested, maybe in co founders or partners. And in situations like that, our clients need somebody who can be a sounding board for what's ideal, maybe what's tolerable, but we can manage it, or
Yeah.
even what's completely dysfunctional and absolutely needs to be fixed in order for the company to have a future. And that requires somebody with experience in those kind of dynamics.
Absolutely. It's one of those things you don't know what you don't know unless you've got that experience, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing I see
Sure.
is that executives are constantly faced with really tricky, I'll call them people problems. It might be performance issues with their senior team or kind of disconcerting behavior that they don't really know what to do with. And often they actually want advice from somebody who is an expert in those things, even before approaching their own HR department for various reasons. So that's another place where an advisor coach can be particularly helpful.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of build on that a little. We've heard that phrase that the higher you go up in the organization, the lonelier it sort of gets, right? So sometimes not showing that vulnerability to your HR colleague, but having a safe, trusted partner that you can go to and it goes nowhere else can be really sort of reassuring and bring additional value to these executives.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just I'll add one more, just very generally
Sure.
speaking. I mean, executives are obviously called on to make all sorts of hard and time-bound decisions. And often they don't have the time to go and find all the people that they might need to be a sounding board. So if they are set up with an advisor coach, that advisor coach can be a fantastic sounding board, somebody who can be sort of the ultimate devil's advocate, but with no dog in the fight. So, as an advisor, I often know enough to tell you what might happen if you took path A, B, or C, because I've seen those things play out in the past. I might be able to offer insights on how a given decision might play out in the long term. And what's really important in that is that I truly have no agenda other than my client and their organization success, other than their goals, which is core to coaching. But that advisor piece of it, of actually being able to share insights on how things might play out over time, can be super helpful.
So reassuring for executive, right? To proactively think about what are some of the upsides and downsides of a decision I will take. The other piece that you mentioned is speed. They don't have time to go find everyone in the organization. And that's what this program is built for. Instead of sort of executive coaching or transition coaching, which tends to be 6 months or more, this is a 3 month program for urgency and speed. And it's a retainer program so that they can contact you to say, hey, I need to talk at any point they want to versus regular sessions at a set point. So that gives them the agility and flexibility to to make the most of your advisor coaching.
Yeah,
All right,
I
question
love
number
that.
two. How in your mind is advisor coaching different from traditional executive coaching or even consulting?
Yeah, this gets back to what we were just saying with respect to the urgency of executives' needs. One of the complaints that we hear with pure coaching is that it doesn't always match the urgency of executive needs because it prioritizes client growth and their transformation over immediate execution. And there's a place for that. It is so valuable. But sometimes, especially at that very senior leader, they actually need to prioritize the success of the organization, even if it comes at the expense of their own growth. Sometimes it's no exaggeration to say that if the client doesn't prioritize the organization or their execution, there won't be an organization to prioritize anymore. And so that's one of the key differentiators here is that speed of execution.
Absolutely. And you have both, right? So at times where a leader does want to learn, grow, challenge how they do things as a leader, you can put on your coaching hat. And that's why it's not just pure advisory, it's advisor coaching. Thank you, Carrie. Super clear. Okay. Now let's talk specifically about you and your experience as a business leader, operator. What experience from the advisory business perspective do you bring to the table as an advisor coach?
Hey, I have a PhD in psychology. I'm a recognized expert in team dynamics. I'm a master meeting facilitator, and I'm also a serial entrepreneur. So I've played all of those out in multiple businesses. So I find that I can advise really strongly on how to change the dynamics of a team, how to navigate really difficult conversations, and back to governance, how to put governance structures in place that facilitate things like effective decision making and accountability and even innovation.
Thank you, Carrie. What's a moment, if you think back when you've played the role of the position as advisor coach, of where when you were in that advisory mode of a success without giving anything confidential away about a client, an example where your advisory value really helped the leader, and how did you know it was valuable for them?
Yeah, it's such a great question. What comes to mind is an example of a time where I was hired by the founder and CEO of a solar company. And he hired me as a coach, coaching agreement, to help him scale his leadership. That was the original sort of stated objective. But it
Yeah.
became very quickly obvious that he was such a choke point in the organization that he was doing everything from business development, which maybe he should have been doing as founder and CEO, to new employee orientation, like training people in the most basic elements of their jobs. And as long as that learning curve is tolerable, that's coachable challenge. Scaling is a coachable challenge. But in this case, he nor the company had the ability to ride out that learning curve. And so, with his permission, I started to play much more the role of advisor. So, I analyzed the org chart. I pointed out where he absolutely had to delegate, where he wasn't allowed, right, to do it anymore. And when staff couldn't meet those expectations, because sometimes they couldn't, then I ended up advising on performance management options. And when he decided to finally hire a CFO to take on that part of the role, I was able to advise him on hiring because he didn't have a robust HR department at that point in this business. So within 9 months, he was able to focus his own time actually on technology innovation for the company, which was where he needed to be putting his attention. And actually, within 18 months, he was able to successfully sell the company. It was acquired, which was one of his goals. And it's still a really top solar installer in the US. So, super proud of that and proud of what he was able to accomplish.
And a really good example of that blend of coaching him as a leader as well as advisory. And what one thing that came up for me was again, at this level, this program advisor coaching is really built for C-suite, C-suite minus one, maybe SVPs, and sometimes board members. And very often their own colleagues within the organization won't be honest with them, right? Because there can be a consequence, or maybe they don't know how to, or and so they can continue doing the things that are detrimental to them as an executive, but also detrimental to their organization. And no one's actually saying, hey, this has to stop. Whereas with a trusted advisor in a safe environment where your only goal is their success, you can lay it out. One, because you've seen it before, and because you've got the skill and capability to do so. Thank you, Carrie. Final question. Is there anything else you'd like to add around advisor coaching and the value of it?
Where my mind goes is the difference in what you might choose an advisor coach for, how you might choose an advisor coach for yourself. So, when you're looking for a general coach, you're often looking for chemistry and fit, things like that. When you're looking for an advisor coach, you really are looking for someone that can complement the expertise that you lack, but that you desperately need in whatever scenario that you're in. And so that might be someone who, you wouldn't choose as an everyday coach, a pure coach, even though they're going to coach you a bit as well, right? But you really have to prioritize looking for the people whose expertise is gonna fill those gaps in your own.
So, Carrie, what else would you like people to know about you as an advisor coach when they're thinking about the best advisor coach fit for their need?
One of the areas that I have extensive experience in is that intersection of academics and leadership and even government, if you want to throw those three into the mix. I spent 10 years of my career at the National Science Foundation, setting up, running, facilitating executive development, really helping scientific leaders become leaders of big, complex organizations that were doing really
Mm,
important work on behalf of the country and working in the context of a very bureaucratic system. And that's a hard leap. In fact, I think it's a challenge that holds a lot of scientists and engineers back from
yeah.
having an impact that they would actually love to have. They don't think they can be effective leaders at a scale that big, and they can. And so I love working at that intersection.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much.